Olivia Carter had been waiting for this vacation for months. The last year had drained her completely. Every morning she woke up before sunrise, rushed through her coffee, and drove through heavy traffic to reach the office on time. She worked long hours, often skipping lunch and leaving the office after everyone else had gone home. Her boss, Ethan Cole, was demanding and never seemed satisfied no matter how hard she worked. The endless meetings, reports, and late-night messages had left her exhausted. When her company finally approved her vacation request, Olivia felt like she could breathe again. She booked a small room at a quiet seaside hotel in Florida, far away from the city noise. The moment she arrived, she felt something inside her relax. The soft sound of waves, the salty breeze, and the sight of sunlight reflecting on the water made her feel alive again. For the first time in a long while, she didn't have to think about deadlines or office politics. Her first morning at the beach felt like a dream. She woke up to the sound of seagulls and the gentle splash of waves against the shore. She opened the window and took a deep breath of fresh air. The warm sunlight touched her face as she smiled. She made herself a cup of coffee and sat on the balcony, watching the ocean stretch endlessly before her. It was peaceful and quiet, something she had forgotten how to enjoy. Olivia had always loved her work, but lately, it had become too heavy. Her company had been going through changes, and everyone was under pressure to perform. She had taken on more work than anyone else, trying to prove herself. She thought if she worked harder, maybe Ethan would finally notice her efforts. But no matter how many hours she gave, the appreciation never came. This vacation was supposed to be her escape from all of that. She spent her first day walking along the beach, feeling the sand between her toes and letting the waves touch her feet. She watched families laughing together, children building sandcastles, and couples holding hands. For a moment, she wished her life could be that simple too. She realized how much she had missed living, smiling, and just being herself. Her phone was in her bag, but she didn't want to look at it. She promised herself that this week was only for her, no work, no stress, no distractions. In the evening, she went to a small local restaurant near the beach. The place was cozy, with wooden tables, soft lights, and the smell of grilled seafood filling the air. She ordered a plate of shrimp tacos and a cold lemonade. The waitress smiled warmly and asked where she was from. Olivia laughed softly and said she was from New York, just trying to escape the noise for a while. They talked briefly, and for once, Olivia didn't have to pretend to be strong or busy. She felt human again. After dinner, she took a walk on the beach under the moonlight. The night was calm and beautiful. The waves shimmered under the silver glow of the moon, and the air was cool and gentle. She thought about how long it had been since she felt this peaceful. She had spent so many nights sitting in front of her laptop, worrying about presentations and deadlines. Now, all she had to think about was how beautiful the night looked. Back in her hotel room, she lay down on the bed, listening to the waves outside. Her thoughts drifted to her coworkers and how they were probably still stuck in the office. For the first time, she didn't feel guilty about resting. She deserved this break. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "You need this, Olivia. Just rest." The next morning, she woke up early again, but this time, not because of an alarm. The sun was rising over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. She sat up and smiled. Today was hers to enjoy. She put on a light dress, grabbed her sunglasses, and walked to the beach for breakfast. The little cafe by the water served pancakes and fresh fruit, and the waiter greeted her with a friendly smile. She felt warmth in her heart that she hadn't felt in months. As she sat there, sipping her orange juice, she thought about how different life felt when she slowed down. She wondered if maybe she had been living too fast, always chasing something that never gave her peace. Maybe it was time to think about what she truly wanted, not just what others expected from her. The sound of laughter nearby made her smile. A group of friends was taking pictures and enjoying their morning. Olivia took a deep breath, feeling the ocean breeze brush against her face. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about her boss or her workload. She was just Olivia, a woman enjoying her morning by the sea. She didn't know that this peaceful moment was about to change. That in just a few hours, one email would shake her calm and test everything she had learned about herself. But for now, she let herself enjoy the silence, unaware of what was waiting for her ahead. Olivia Carter woke up the next morning feeling light and peaceful. The sound of the ocean waves drifted through the open window, and sunlight touched the white curtains of her small seaside room. She stretched her arms and smiled. It was another calm day in Florida, far from the stress of her busy life in New York. She made herself a cup of coffee and sat on the balcony, enjoying the view of the clear blue water. She had promised herself not to check her work emails during this trip. It was supposed to be a break, a full escape from anything that reminded her of her job. But old habits were hard to break. When she saw her phone blinking on the table, a small voice inside told her to just take a quick look. Only for a minute, she whispered to herself. Maybe there was something simple or harmless, like a note from a coworker or a friendly message from the office. When she unlocked her phone, there were a few notifications, some social media updates, a message from her friend Lily, and one email from her boss, Ethan Cole. Her heart skipped a beat. The subject line read, "Effective immediately." Her hand froze in midair. She frowned and blinked, wondering if she was reading it wrong. Ethan rarely emailed her directly unless it was something serious. She hesitated for a few seconds, her chest tightening with unease. Curiosity mixed with fear as she tapped to open the message. The email was short. Too short. It read, "Olivia. Effective immediately, you are being demoted to associate level. Details will follow after your return. Ethan Cole." She stared at the screen, her mind blank. The sound of the waves seemed to fade away. Her heart started beating faster. Demoted, she whispered to herself, reading the words again and again. It didn't make sense. There had been no warning, no meeting, no mistake she could think of. Just this cold, emotionless message. Olivia's hand trembled as she placed the phone down on the table. The coffee she had been enjoying now felt bitter. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the horizon but not really seeing it. A heavy silence filled the space around her. It felt like the peace she had found had just been stolen from her in a single moment. Her thoughts began to race. Was this because of the project she led last month? She had worked day and night to save that campaign when everyone else had given up. The client had even sent a thank you note praising her dedication. Why would they punish her now? None of it made sense. She picked up her phone again, checking if there was another message, maybe something to explain what had happened. But there was nothing. Just that one cold email. Her eyes burned as she stared at the words again. A feeling of betrayal began to grow inside her chest. Olivia had given so much to that company. She had sacrificed weekends, birthdays, even family visits. She remembered staying up till 2 in the morning finishing reports while Ethan sent her new tasks without a word of thanks. And now, without reason or respect, she was being pushed down like she didn't matter. She felt a lump form in her throat. Anger and hurt fought for space inside her. She wanted to call Ethan right away, demand an explanation, tell him how unfair this was. But then she stopped. What would she even say? He had already made his decision. Arguing now wouldn't change it. Instead, she put her phone face down on the table and stood up. She walked to the edge of the balcony, gripping the railing tightly. The sea was calm, but her thoughts were anything but. The warm wind brushed against her face, and she tried to breathe slowly. This can't be real, she murmured. Not like this. Her vacation, the one she had been looking forward to for so long, now felt ruined. The sense of freedom she had felt only hours ago was gone. In its place was a deep sadness mixed with confusion. She couldn't understand how people could treat others so carelessly. After a while, she sat back down and tried to think clearly. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe Ethan had sent the email by accident or meant it for someone else. She opened her laptop, hoping to see more information, but there was nothing new in her inbox. Only the same message, cold and final. Olivia rested her head in her hands. She thought of her parents, who had always told her that hard work would pay off. She thought of the nights she stayed late at the office, thinking she was building her future. Now all of it seemed meaningless. The sun was higher in the sky now, and the cheerful sounds from the beach below felt distant. People were laughing, children were playing, and yet, Olivia felt like she was standing in a different world. Her world had just shifted, quietly and cruelly, through a few simple lines in an email. After a long silence, she finally whispered to herself, "No. This isn't how my story ends." She didn't know what she would do yet, but deep inside, a small spark began to form, a spark of strength. She would not let a few words define her worth. But for now, she sat quietly, staring at the endless sea, trying to find the courage to face what came next. Olivia sat on the balcony for a long time, staring at the ocean but not really seeing it. The sound of the waves, which had felt peaceful just an hour ago, now felt distant and strange. Her mind was heavy with confusion. She still couldn't believe what she had read. Her hands were cold, and her heart felt like it was sinking deeper with every passing minute. She kept thinking, maybe there was a mistake. Maybe Ethan had sent the email to the wrong person. Or maybe this was some kind of test, though that thought made no sense either. The more she tried to reason with herself, the more the truth settled in. It wasn't a mistake. It was real. Her phone was still lying face down on the table. She didn't want to touch it again. She didn't want to see those words one more time. The email had felt like a slap, silent, unexpected, and humiliating. She thought about the way Ethan had spoken to her in the past. He was always calm but distant, always making her feel like she had to do more, give more. And she had. For years, she gave everything. Olivia stood up and walked back into her room. The air conditioning was cool, but she felt warm and restless. She paced slowly from one corner of the room to the other. Her thoughts kept spinning in circles. She thought about her coworkers, about how they might already know. The idea made her stomach twist. She didn't want to imagine people whispering about her back at the office. She sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed her temples. A part of her wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. She felt numb instead. She remembered the long nights she had spent at her desk, her eyes burning from staring at the computer screen, while Ethan sent her more emails with the word urgent in the subject line. She had never complained. She thought it would all be worth it someday. She remembered last winter, when her best friend Lily invited her to a small weekend trip. Olivia had said no because she had to finish a report for Ethan. Now she wondered why she had said yes to every demand, every extra task. She had believed that loyalty and hard work meant something. But in that moment, it all felt like a lie. The walls of the room felt smaller now. She walked to the mirror and looked at herself. Her eyes were tired, and her face looked pale. "You gave them everything," she whispered softly. "And they didn't even care." Her voice cracked at the end of the sentence. It wasn't fair. She had always believed that people noticed effort, that kindness and dedication would be respected. But now she saw how easily people could throw away years of someone's life with one short email. Olivia walked to the window again, trying to steady her breath. Outside, the beach was full of life. Families were laughing, surfers were running into the water, and the sun was bright and golden. She felt like she was standing on the edge of two worlds, one filled with light, and one filled with disappointment. It hurt to know that her own world had changed while everyone else's stayed the same. She picked up her phone again, hesitating for a moment before unlocking it. She opened the email once more, hoping she had imagined it, but the words were still there, cold and final. She scrolled up and read Ethan's name at the top. There was no emotion in the message, no thank you, no reason. Just a decision. A single decision that erased years of her hard work. Her hand trembled as she set the phone down again. She felt a mix of anger and sadness, anger at the unfairness, sadness at how small she suddenly felt. The company she had once trusted, the place she thought of as part of her life, had just proven how little she mattered to them. She sat down again and pulled her knees close to her chest. For a few minutes, she just breathed slowly, staring at the floor. Every thought that came made her heart ache. She thought about sending a reply right away, but then she stopped herself. What could she say? Words couldn't fix this. And she didn't want to sound desperate or weak. She wanted to understand first. She needed time. The rest of the day passed quietly. Olivia didn't go out to the beach. She didn't eat lunch. She stayed in her room, trying to make sense of it all. The sound of the waves outside became like a background hum, a reminder that the world kept moving even when her own had paused. As the evening came, the sky outside turned orange and pink. She watched the sunset from her window, feeling the weight of everything pressing on her. Somewhere inside, she knew this moment was changing her. It hurt deeply, but it also opened something, a new kind of awareness. She couldn't explain it yet, but she felt it. Olivia lay down on the bed and closed her eyes. She was still shocked, still trying to understand why this had happened. But as she drifted into a restless sleep, one thought kept echoing in her mind: if they could take everything away so easily, then maybe it was time for her to take something back, her peace, her strength, and her worth. Olivia woke up the next morning feeling as if she had not slept at all. The memories of the previous day came rushing back as soon as she opened her eyes. The email, the shock, the confusion, it all felt fresh, like a wound that had not even begun to heal. She lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince herself it had all been a bad dream. But deep down, she knew it was real. She got up slowly and walked to the window. The morning sun was bright, the beach below filled with people enjoying another beautiful day. Olivia felt disconnected from all of it. Her heart was heavy, and her mind was restless. She tried to smile, but it faded as quickly as it came. She made herself a cup of coffee and sat down on the small chair by the balcony. The smell reminded her of her mornings at the office, except those mornings were filled with stress, rushing through emails, and the sound of constant notifications. She remembered how many times she skipped breakfast, too busy to even take a sip of her coffee while it was still warm. Her mind began to drift back to all the moments she had sacrificed for her job. She remembered the weekends when her friends invited her out, but she had stayed home to finish presentations. She thought of her parents, who lived in another state, and how she had promised to visit last Christmas but cancelled at the last minute because Ethan had called her into the office. She could still hear her mother's disappointed voice on the phone, saying, "Work will always be there, Olivia. We won't always be." Those words stung now more than ever. Olivia had believed that hard work always paid off. That if she showed loyalty and effort, people would notice. She wanted to prove herself, not just to her boss, but to everyone who had ever doubted her. She had given everything she had to that company, her time, her energy, her peace. And for what? One short email. One decision made without a second thought. She closed her eyes and thought about the late nights. The times when the office was quiet and empty except for her. The hum of the lights, the sound of typing keys, and the city lights glowing outside the window. Sometimes she stayed until midnight, finishing projects that weren't even her responsibility. Ethan used to send her short messages like, "Good job," or "Appreciate the effort." At the time, those words had felt like rewards. Now they felt meaningless. She remembered one winter evening when it was snowing hard outside. Most of her coworkers had already left, but Olivia stayed behind to help finish a client presentation. She worked until her fingers were stiff and her eyes hurt. When she finally walked out of the building, the streets were covered in snow, and her car was buried under it. She had to wait 2 hours for a cab, standing in the cold, because she was too tired to dig it out herself. That night, she told herself it was worth it, that someday her hard work would be recognized. But now, it all felt like time she could never get back. Her thoughts turned to the people she worked with. Some had already left the company because they couldn't handle the pressure. Others stayed quiet and did just enough to survive. Olivia had always been the one who volunteered, who said yes to extra work. Ethan liked that about her. He once called her the reliable one. She used to feel proud of that. Now she realized it had made her easy to use. The more she thought about it, the more a strange calm began to settle over her. The pain was still there, but beneath it was a quiet understanding. She couldn't change what had happened, but she could finally see things clearly. The company had taken more from her than she had ever noticed, her time, her joy, her confidence. She took a sip of her coffee, which had gone cold, and looked at the horizon. The sky was wide and blue, endless like the choices she had never allowed herself to make. Maybe this was a sign, she thought. Maybe life was trying to tell her that she had given enough. Her phone was on the table, dark and silent. She didn't want to look at it. She knew there were probably more messages from work, but she wasn't ready to face them. Not yet. She needed space to think, to breathe. As the day went on, Olivia walked along the beach again. The sound of the waves comforted her. With every step, she remembered another sacrifice she had made, birthdays she had missed, dinners she had cancelled, nights she had spent staring at spreadsheets instead of the stars. The memories came like waves, one after another, and each one reminded her of how much she had lost trying to prove her worth. But there was something else in those memories now, strength. The same strength that had kept her working through all those hard nights was still inside her. Maybe it was time to use that strength for herself, not for a company that didn't care. As the sun began to set, Olivia sat on the sand, letting the cool breeze brush against her skin. The horizon glowed with soft colors of orange and purple. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "You did your best. Now it's time to do what's best for you." For the first time since the email, she felt a small sense of peace returning. She didn't know what would come next, but she knew she would face it with open eyes, and with her heart finally ready to move forward. Later that evening, Olivia sat in the hotel lobby, staring at her phone screen. The words from Ethan's email still echoed in her mind. She had read it so many times that she could almost recite it by heart. Effective immediately. Those two words cut the deepest. They made everything she had worked for feel like it had vanished in an instant. She knew she couldn't avoid it forever. She had to decide what to do next. She opened her laptop, not to work, but to look at her old messages, her performance reviews, her achievements. As she scrolled, she felt a mix of anger and sadness. Every note of praise, every project completed, every extra hour worked, none of it seemed to matter anymore. Her name, once respected in the office, was now just a line on a list of employees easily replaced. But as she looked through her old emails, something unexpected caught her attention. There was a message from a client she had helped last year, thanking her for saving their account when things had gone wrong. The client had written, "You're the reason we stayed with your company. Your dedication made all the difference." Olivia read it twice. For the first time since the demotion, she felt something stir inside her, a small spark of pride. She closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was just a turning point. The next morning, she woke up earlier than usual. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and pink. For the first time in days, she didn't feel heavy or lost. She went for a walk along the beach, her feet sinking slightly into the cool sand. The sound of the waves was steady and calming. As she walked, she began to think clearly. She realized she had spent years living by someone else's rules, trying to please her boss, trying to fit into a system that never truly valued her. She had been so focused on being seen as the perfect employee that she had forgotten what made her happy. Work had become her whole world, but it was never meant to be. As the waves washed over her feet, Olivia felt a quiet determination growing inside her. She couldn't let this one email define her. She couldn't let Ethan or anyone else decide her worth. Maybe losing her position was painful, but it was also freeing. For the first time, she had nothing to lose, and everything to rebuild. After breakfast, she sat at the hotel desk and opened her laptop again. This time, she wasn't looking at her past. She opened a blank document and began to type. She started outlining an idea she had been thinking about for years, starting her own consulting business. She had the skills, the experience, and the connections. What she lacked before was courage. But now, courage was the only thing she had left, and she intended to use it. As she typed, her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from excitement. The idea of creating something of her own made her feel alive again. She could work with clients who valued her, build a small team, and finally control her own time. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't working out of obligation, she was working out of hope. By the afternoon, she had a rough plan in place. She would return home, take a few weeks to rest, and then start reaching out to her old contacts. She even drafted a polite but firm email to Ethan. She didn't plan to send it yet, but writing it felt empowering. In the message, she didn't express anger or bitterness. Instead, she thanked him for the opportunity, stated how much she had learned, and ended with a calm, confident line, "Sometimes, change comes in ways we don't expect, but it often leads us exactly where we need to go." When she finished, she read the words slowly and smiled. It felt like closure. The version of herself who had once needed Ethan's approval no longer existed. She had outgrown that version. That evening, she sat by the shore again. The sea breeze brushed her hair, and the sound of laughter from nearby families filled the air. For the first time since her vacation began, Olivia truly felt at peace. The demotion, as painful as it had been, had given her something she hadn't realized she needed, a reason to start over. She watched the horizon as the sun dipped lower, painting the water in orange and gold. The turning point had come quietly, without drama or noise. It was just a moment of realization, a soft decision in her heart that she was ready for a new beginning. Olivia took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "It's not the end of my story. It's just a new chapter." And as she stood and walked back toward the hotel, she felt lighter than she had in years, ready to face whatever waited ahead. Olivia sat at her desk that night, the glow of her laptop lighting the quiet hotel room. The sound of the waves outside was calm and rhythmic, but inside her heart, a mix of emotions swirled: hurt, peace, determination. She stared at the draft she had written earlier to Ethan. She had written it out of closure, not revenge, but now, reading it again, she realized it said exactly what she wanted him to hear. She had no interest in pleading or explaining. For the first time, she was speaking her truth, not as an employee, but as a person who had finally found her strength. She took a deep breath, read the email one last time, and pressed send. Her message was short but powerful. "Ethan. Thank you for informing me about the change in my position. I've had time to reflect over the past few days, and I want to express my gratitude for all the lessons this experience has brought me. Working under your management taught me dedication and resilience, and for that, I'm thankful. However, this demotion has also reminded me of something important, that my worth isn't tied to a title or position. I've realized that my time, talent, and energy deserve to be invested where they're truly valued. I'll be stepping away from the company to explore a new direction in my career. Wishing you and the team all the best. Olivia." She read the words again, then slowly closed her laptop. A weight lifted off her shoulders. For the first time in a long while, she felt free. She wasn't afraid of what would come next, she was curious. The next morning, she woke up to several missed calls and unread messages. Ethan had replied within an hour after she sent her email. Olivia hesitated for a moment before opening it. His message was longer than she expected. "Olivia. I was surprised to receive your message. I won't deny that your decision caught me off guard. You've been one of the most dedicated people on the team, and your work has always spoken for itself. The recent change wasn't meant as a reflection of your ability, it was a decision made during restructuring. That said, I can see now that perhaps I handled it poorly. If you'd consider a conversation before finalizing your decision, I'd appreciate the chance to talk." Olivia stared at the screen, her heart beating faster. The words, "I handled it poorly," stood out. For someone like Ethan, who rarely admitted fault, that was almost an apology. She set her phone down and thought for a long moment. The old version of herself would have rushed to reply, to fix things, to find middle ground. But the new Olivia didn't feel that need anymore. She had said what she needed to say. She didn't owe anyone an explanation. Instead of replying right away, she got dressed and went outside. The morning air was cool, the sand soft under her feet, She watched the waves roll in and felt the wind brush her face. The ocean, vast and endless, reminded her that life always keeps moving forward, no matter what happens. Hours later, she finally opened her phone and typed a short, calm response. Ethan, I appreciate your message. I understand that decisions like these are part of business, but I've made peace with mine as well. I wish you success with the team going forward. Take care. She hit send, then smiled. It wasn't anger that filled her now, it was peace, and a quiet confidence. Her reply wasn't just a message to her boss, it was a message to herself. She was done being silent. She was done letting others define her value. That evening, as the sun set over the water, Olivia walked along the shore one last time before packing for home. She felt lighter, stronger, and more alive than ever before. The email that once felt like the end of her world had turned into the beginning of her freedom. When she returned to her hotel room, she noticed one last message from Ethan, "You'll be missed here, Olivia. I truly mean that." She smiled softly, then closed her laptop for good. Whatever waited for her next, she knew she would face it with courage. Her reply had changed everything, not because it fixed the past, but because it opened her future. As she turned off the lights and looked out at the stars, she whispered to herself, "This time, I'm choosing me." When Olivia returned home from her vacation, the city felt different. The streets were the same, the people were the same, but she wasn't. She walked through her apartment door and set her suitcase down, pausing for a moment to breathe it all in. It had been a long time since she had felt truly at peace in her own space. The silence didn't feel lonely anymore, it felt like a new beginning. For the first few days, she let herself rest. She cooked simple meals, went for walks, and read books she had bought months ago but never had time to open. Every morning, she sat by her window with a cup of coffee, watching the sunlight pour into the room. Each quiet moment reminded her that she didn't need constant noise or deadlines to feel alive. Slowly, she began working on her plan. Her consulting idea was no longer just a thought, it was becoming real. She made a list of people she had worked with in the past, clients who had trusted her judgment, and contacts who might be interested in her services. She sent a few messages, introducing her new path with calm confidence. To her surprise, replies came quickly. A few clients even said they'd been waiting for someone like her to branch out on their own. That small encouragement pushed her forward. Olivia spent her afternoons building her website, designing a simple logo, and setting up her home office. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. She had a small desk by the window, a new notebook, and a plant she named Hope. Every little detail felt like a step towards something better. One morning, she received a call from a client she had helped years ago. They remembered her professionalism and warmth and wanted her to lead a new project. Olivia smiled as she hung up the phone. It was her first official contract under her own name. She sat there for a moment, letting the feelings sink in. The excitement, the pride, it was all real. Her days soon began to fill with purpose again, but this time, it was different. There was no pressure to prove herself, no fear of being replaced. Every task she completed was for her own dream. And in the quiet of her home, she found joy in the work she once thought had stolen it from her. One afternoon, as she organized her files, she came across an old photo of her and her coworkers at a company event. She looked at the picture for a moment and smiled softly. She didn't feel anger anymore, only gratitude. That chapter of her life had taught her so much, not just about work, but about herself. It had shown her how strong she could be when everything fell apart. As weeks turned into months, Olivia's business grew slowly but steadily. She learned to trust herself more, to say no when needed, and to protect her peace above all else. She realized that success didn't have to mean stress, and ambition didn't have to mean exhaustion. One evening, she sat at her desk, typing up a report for a client. The sun was setting outside, painting her apartment in shades of gold and orange. She paused for a moment, looking out the window, remembering the day on the beach when everything changed. The day she received that email. The day her old life ended, and this one began. She smiled softly and whispered, thank you, not to anyone in particular, but to life itself. Because sometimes, what feels like the worst ending turns out to be the start of something beautiful. Olivia leaned back in her chair, took a deep breath, and closed her laptop. The world outside was quiet, but inside, her heart was full. Her new beginning wasn't loud or grand, it was peaceful, steady, and exactly what she needed. Months had passed since Olivia had left her job. The seasons had changed, and with them, so had she. Her consulting business was growing steadily, not fast or loud, but in a way that felt right. Each client she worked with reminded her why she had chosen this path, to build something meaningful, to create work that mattered, and to live on her own terms. One morning, as she was sipping her coffee and checking her emails, a familiar name appeared in her inbox. It was Ethan. Her heart skipped for a moment, not from fear, but from curiosity. She opened the message slowly. Olivia. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out to let you know that the company is undergoing some major changes, and I've been promoted to a higher position. I've been thinking a lot about the people who helped build our foundation, and your name came to mind. I wanted to thank you for your hard work and the example you set. It didn't go unnoticed. I wish you continued success in whatever you do. Ethan. Olivia read the message twice. She felt no bitterness, no old resentment, just a quiet sense of closure. She smiled faintly and leaned back in her chair. It was strange how life worked sometimes. The same person who once made her feel small was now acknowledging her strength. But the truth was, she didn't need his recognition anymore. She had already moved on. Instead of replying right away, she stood up and walked to her window. The morning sun poured in, warm and golden. The city was waking up outside, cars moving, people hurrying, life unfolding. For a long moment, she simply stood there, taking it all in. The noise, the light, the peace within her, it all felt full circle. Later that afternoon, she did reply, but her message was short and simple. Thank you, Ethan. I'm glad to hear things are going well. Wishing you and the team all the best. She sent it, then closed her laptop, feeling lighter. There was no need for more words. The chapter had already ended long ago. That evening, she met her best friend, Claire, at a small cafe downtown. They laughed over coffee, talked about their plans, and watched the sun set through the big glass windows. Claire leaned back and smiled. You seem different, Liv, she said. Happier. Calmer. Olivia smiled too. I think I finally am, she said softly. When she walked home that night, the streets glowed under the streetlights. She passed by people rushing home from work, their faces tired, their phones in hand. For a moment, she saw her old self in them, the woman who once lived for approval, for titles, for recognition. But now, she felt nothing but compassion. She reached her apartment, set her bag down, and stood by the window once more. The city stretched out before her, vast and alive. She thought about the woman who had stood on the beach months ago, reading that email, feeling broken and lost. That woman had no idea that the same moment would lead her here, to peace, independence, and quiet joy. Olivia smiled and whispered to herself, "You made it." The night outside deepened, the city lights shimmered, and in that quiet moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, contentment. Not the loud kind that comes from success or praise, but the soft kind that grows when you finally choose yourself. Her story had come full circle, not because she went back to where she started, but because she had finally found her way home, to herself.